This lesson is all about carbon dioxide, but first I will recap the work we did on photosynthesis. This is page 5. Oxygen is made by photosynthesis, and we collected some in the lab by pouring water into a large tank. We have an appearance which is clear and colourless, which should be no surprise. It has no smell, and because it bubbles through water without the bubbles dissolving, it is insoluble in water. The key experiment was the glowing splint experiment, which relights the glowing splint. A burning splint burns brighter. Lime water and universal indicator do not change. Before we leave this page, you should have calculated the nitrogen percentage in air. On the next page, we think about the best test for oxygen, and it should be quite obvious that the best test is the glowing splint test, because no other gas relights a glowing splint. Carbon dioxide is the main gas from this lesson. It's a tiny percentage in air, less than 1/3 of 1%. You should already have watched a video on carbon dioxide. We used this apparatus. We reacted marble chips with dilute hydrochloric acid. The gas produced passed up through the delivery tube and bubbled through water and collected in a water-filled test tube. You're going to draw this diagram on page 8. Please pause the video if you want to make a careful copy of this. Please note also that you should have a gap through here for the gas to travel. Do not block it here. The tube that is delivering the gas should be underneath the water-filled test tube, and the neck of the test tube should be below the level of the water. From watching the video, you should have filled in all of the results for carbon dioxide. And the best test, I hope you have realised, is the lime water test. No other gas turns lime water from clear and colourless to cloudy and white. We have carbon dioxide in our heads perhaps as a very unreactive gas. It doesn't really do very much. Carbon dioxide, however, can be a very dangerous gas. And you should watch this video here from the Files tab in Microsoft Teams that tells you all about this disaster in this lake in Cameroon in 1986. There's a second video there about the problem carbon dioxide can cause in mountain regions in Colorado. Also in this lesson, we have this idea that we can save ourselves some time by writing a chemical equation. We have the reactants and the products. Reactants, the substances which react together, and the products, the substances which are made. Read through this and fill in the reactants and products. It should be quite obvious. We then put the reactants and the products together in a word equation. This is the word equation for the reaction we did in the video. Hydrochloric acid plus calcium carbonate reacts to make carbon dioxide, calcium chloride, and water. The plus sign just means and the arrow sign means reacts to make. We never ever put an equal sign here. This is not a sum in maths. The first example is here for us. Sulfuric acid reacts with calcium carbonate to make calcium sulfate, carbon dioxide, and water. Fill in these 3 word equations. The second one is a little tricky. Take care with it. You should realise that in each of these reactions, we're reacting any carbonate with any acid. And in that situation, we can write in chemistry a general equation. This saves us time and mind power by allowing us to apply this general equation to any situation. We always get carbon dioxide made whenever we have a carbonate and an acid. Water is also a product, and the other substance is a salt. Salts, just like our table salt, are chemicals, and every chemical has its own name. Salts have two parts to their name. You might know the name of table salt being sodium chloride, the first name and the second name, sodium chloride. The first name always comes from the reactant which is not the acid. So we use calcium carbonate, and it's usually the name of a metal, for example, calcium. The second part comes from the acid's name, but we have to change the acid's name. This table tells us what the second part of the name is like. Hydrochloric acid forms chloride salts. Nitric acid makes nitrates. Sulfuric makes sulfates. Phosphoric makes phosphates. And ethanoic acid makes ethanoate. There's a couple of examples here for you. Up here, we're going to fill in all the gaps. This first one is done for you. Potassium carbonate and nitric acid reacts to make, well, it makes carbon dioxide and water. That's easy. But naming the salt comes from the first name, comes from the part that's not the acid, potassium in this case. And the second part comes from the acid, nitrate from nitric acid, nitrate from nitric acid. So potassium carbonate plus nitric acid makes potassium nitrate plus carbon dioxide plus water. Fill in the rest of these yourself. I'll give you the answers next time. You could perhaps test a friend online trying to use FaceTime or Skype or Messenger or whatever social media you're using these days. Test your friend and make sure you know the answers.